Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you my first introductory tour of my garden here. So this is a house I only just recently moved into. So I'm based in North Scotland now. It's in a county called Moray. So this is around about the 58 degrees north, like my channel is named. So I've only moved into this house 2 or 3 days ago because there's been a lot of renovation work that's needed done, and also with the coronavirus lockdown I've been staying at my parents for most of the time. I've only just really recently, with the restrictions easing, been able to move into the house and continue to do a bit more work. So the garden has been a bit neglected, so it's looking a bit overgrown at the moment, although there's not a huge amount to the garden to begin with to get overgrown. It's mainly a few shrubs and lawns. So at the front here we've got some hedges here. These are some privet hedges, variegated privet. I did cut these about 2 or 3 months ago, but they've started to grow again, so they're in desperate need of another cut. Coming to the front of the house, it's mainly just lawn, to be honest. There's also a driveway here. As you can see, I've currently got my van there at the moment. So size wise, my front garden is probably actually quite a decent size. It's slightly bigger than the back garden, and it's quite exposed as well. The back garden is a lot more sheltered with fencing and more trees. So even though we're quite far north, the climate here is actually not too bad considering how far north we are. So the climate is slightly better than what you'd expect in this part of the world. The weather-wise, it's a lot warmer in the winter than what you would expect. Summer-wise, it is quite cool. It's not particularly a hot climate, so it's only about 18 degrees maximum during the day. This garden is quite sheltered in the back, as I say. In the front, it's a little bit less sheltered, but the town where I'm living in, because I'm in a town, it's more sheltered than where my parents' garden would be, and also there's a lot of forestry in this area, which is really helping to shelter the garden. So on the left we've got a conifer hedge. I'm probably going to keep that, just do a little bit of trimming here and there. I haven't decided fully my plans for the front garden, but I'm certainly going to get rid of a lot of the lawn. It's just a waste of space really, just green grass. So I'm wanting to put some more flowers in. I need to get rid of this contorted hazel as well. This is really too big in this position, so I'll be removing this at some point, but there's not going to be a lot of things happening in this garden, certainly for the first year. The reason for that is I'm going to be focusing on my parents' garden, and also there's a lot of renovation work still needed in the house, and I'll be focusing more on my house plants for the first year. But at the front here I have got quite a few, I have planted up this front bed. I have done a previous video about that, so I'll put that in the iCard now. I basically just planted it up with sunflowers, cornflowers and some shoofly plants as well, but I'll leave that for another update video. So as I say, in this front garden, not a huge amount going on. It's also quite exposed front garden, so I can't do a lot of filming because it's going to be quite a busy road, a lot of noise and things like that. So there'll be less filming in this front garden. The back garden's where I'll do most of the filming, I think. The front for now, as I say, keep fairly simple, but I'm going to be planting this up with lots of roses and lots of other plants, but I haven't fully just finalised my ideas on the design. The soil quality here is also very poor. The back garden seems to have slightly better soil. The front garden is pretty much just sand, no organic matter at all in the soil. The back garden, even though there's also no organic matter, it does at least have some loam and a bit of clay within the sand as well, so it's a much better mixture of soil. But I haven't dug everywhere in the garden, so it could vary quite a bit. As I say, that's all for the front garden. I'll take you around to the back now. So this is my back garden, which is slightly smaller than the front, but it's about the same size. I think the main reason it feels smaller is I've got my conservatory here, and that takes up quite a bit of space. I've recently done an introductory tour of that, so I'll also link that into an iCard for you to have a look at. So the back here, there's a lot more going on. We've got some perennials here, such as the Aquilisa, which have just finished flowering. They'll need deadheading soon. We also had some lovely peonies here, but the peonies have gone over. And the main weed issue we have at the moment here is the bishop weed here, otherwise known as ground elder. This spreads really easily and it's very hard to get rid of, so I'll probably be doing a lot of work trying to remove that. At the front here we've got some roses which have gone out of control, some other shrubs, and we've also got some honeysuckle which is just kind of clambering over everything and smothering everything. So I'm going to have to clear out a lot of these plants, cut it right back and really start again in this section. There are some nicer plants such as the crocosmia down here, which will be flowering later in the year. So I might leave some of the crocosmia, but a lot of these plants are in the wrong place really, and they're too big for this position, so I'll be removing them. We do have, as I say, the Aquilisa and the peonies, they'll probably stay, they're quite nice. But we also have some plum trees, so there's a plum tree here, and there's also a plum tree here, which is really in the wrong place. It's going to get far too large, so I'll be taking out those plum trees before they get too big. Same with this wild rose. I suspect this is actually a root stock that's come up from a cultivated rose and taken over, because this is a very strange place just to have a wild rose growing. So coming through to the main part of the garden, it's as I say, it's not a huge garden, but it's a decent size. I've got a greenhouse as well, which I'll need to renovate soon, so I'm going to hopefully make a video in the future, me renovating the greenhouse. That needs quite a lot of work. There's a lot of panes missing, and annoyingly it's a lot of the curved panes which are more difficult to get. So I'll need to replace the curved panes there, and also you can see there's some big broken pieces of glass, so I need to replace them as well. So there's quite a lot of renovation work before I can get that working. I was hoping to get this up and running this summer so I could actually do a bit of gardening in the greenhouse this year, but with the coronavirus and with all the work needed in the house, I've not actually done anything with the greenhouse. So that's a project for next year probably. Coming around here, we've also got quite a nice bed of plants. So we've got another peony here. This one's just going over. It's a later variety. Desperately needs deadheading. We've had a lot of rain recently, so the problem with peonies is that they just don't like the rain. As soon as it gets wet, the petals just rot off and die. So it's not really a plant for Scotland, really. It does grow well here in Scotland, but the flowers don't last long because as soon as the rain gets to it, the flowers just kind of disintegrate and die. We've also got more crocosmia on the bottom here. So this will be absolutely covered in flowers later on in the year. It tends to be September here in Scotland because we have quite a cold summer. And we've also got quite an unusual plant for Scotland. We've got a hibiscus. Now this is a hardy hibiscus, so it can actually take out colder weather. But hibiscus, even this hardy variety, which can survive the frosts, it needs a hotter summer. So I'm not expecting it to flower that well. And also this hardy variety tends to have small flowers. And they're normally a pale kind of lilac colour, but there's a few different varieties. And they're nowhere near as impressive as the nice tropical varieties that you get with the giant red flowers or lots of different varieties of flower, but they're always really big, about the size of your hand. These ones tend to be quite small, probably about the size of my watch, something like that. So I might get rid of this and see how it does. I'm not expecting it to do well. As I say, it needs to be somewhere like South England or Europe or lots of America, where you get the hot summers with temperatures regularly into 20 degrees. Here we rarely go above 20 degrees, so it just doesn't do well. So we'll see what happens, but I suspect I'll probably get rid of this plant. It's only grown a few centimeters a year by looking at it, so it's probably a good 20-30 years old, this plant, and it's just never going to get that big. It's just the wrong climate here in Scotland. So panning around to the back of the garden, this is a bit more wild, and it certainly needs a lot more work. So this back bit, there's lots of fruit trees. This really big plant in the middle here is a lilac, and I do actually really like lilac trees. They flower in spring, nice scent. They're normally, as the name suggests, lilac coloured, but you also get pink ones and white ones as well, and purple ones. But it's a bit big, and I've got a small garden. I want to fill it up with a lot more plants. Normally I hate taking out trees, but there's a few trees that will need to be taken out here just so I can get more space to grow other plants, and the lilac is one of them. Now I'll probably make a separate video taking this out because lilacs can be quite troublesome. Normally when you cut down a lilac tree, the root systems are quite large and invasive, and they'll send up suckers all over. So this whole garden will probably be covered in suckers coming up from the lilac if I don't take it down correctly. So I'll be making a video about that, removing as much roots as possible so that I don't get loads of suckers coming up. Over here I have a long-term video on the go, so I haven't posted it yet because it's going to take quite a long time to film. So I've filmed the first section of it and I filmed the second section later. I'm basically showing the difference between looking after the soil and looking after the soil. So this section here, I've just planted it straight in my garden soil, no compost, no feed. All the plants are planted at the same size. You can see these are quite small still. This section though, I put in lots of manure, fertilizer, compost, and the plants are much bigger and much more vigorous. So I'll do a more in-depth video about that later on. At the back here it's a little bit wild. I'll probably actually, what I'll do is where this lilac plant is, I'll put a YouTube studio shed in so I can actually film my videos easier. Also I need space for storing my garden tools. Don't have any storage currently in the house, so it's a little bit difficult having the lawnmower and things in there. So I need to remove this. Also there's a pear tree, and although as I say it's a shame to take away trees, pears just don't grow well in Scotland. You need a really sunny position, normally against the south facing wall, because pears like a hot summer, and in Scotland we just don't get hot summers, so these pears just aren't going to ripen up. What normally happens in Scotland is when you have pears, you do get a lot of fruit, but they tend to get covered in scab or kind of fungal diseases. And even if they don't get covered in fungal diseases, what tends to happen is by the end of the summer it starts to get too cold before they can fully ripen up, and you just get hard pears that aren't really edible at all. So Pear tree has to go, unfortunately, because it's useless here in Scotland. It's only good as an ornamental tree. You can't harvest pears from it, unfortunately, unless, as I say, you do have a really sheltered warm spot that gets plenty of sunshine. Here it's kind of sheltered to the so south is this way, so it's sheltered by the other trees and it's not against the wall, so it's not going to crop well, so it needs to come out. So talking about the aspect of the house, you can see the conservatory here. This is the back of the house, and the house faces just about east-west, so the front of the house faces east, back of the house faces west, but it is slightly off east-west, so the back of the house is slightly north-facing, back, and the front is slightly south-facing, but it's basically a southwest aspect, which is good because it means from the south side over here there's not much blocking the sun at all. We're going to get loads of sunshine. It's the same with the front of the garden. Lots of sun's going to come in, but the good thing is there is trees far enough in the distance to protect us from any other strong winds. Most of the winds are going to come from the southwest where these trees are, so that's quite a good aspect to have there. But even if I go around to the other sides of the garden, there's other large trees in the distance. It's quite a forested area and lots of houses, so it's quite sheltered, not like my parents' garden where they get a lot of wind and wind issues. Here, even though we're in a windy part of the world, the wind issues aren't really a massive problem in this particular garden. So coming around to this back section, haven't really done a whole lot. I did put some Jerusalem artichokes in here late spring, so you can see a couple of them coming up, like this one down here, and there's another one down there. But I'm just leaving this kind of grow wild at the moment. I've just put in plants that I know I can just leave all summer because I'll be busy doing other things. Same with this section here. I planted a few potatoes and Jerusalem artichokes. Just leave this area go wild and then I can just harvest it at the end of the season. And the last section is this corner here where I'll probably put a YouTube studio shed or kind of a garden shed at some point. This also needs a bit of work doing to it. Plant wise, I'm not going to have any plants here, but I would like to have a green roof on the shed so I can actually double the growing space. I don't really want to put any buildings in the garden because then you run out of growing places for plants, but if I do need a shed for storage, so I'll put a shed in. I'll probably put a green roof on top. That way I can still get some growing space even though I've taken up the ground area. So the back here, it needs quite a lot of work. We've got an apple tree here, which is a fasciculate one, so it grows straight up. This doesn't need too much pruning. I will need to take these two side branches off just so I can fit the shed into the space here, but I'll leave that other one. And most of these varieties that are fasciculate are normally crab apples, but this one, it looks like they're going to be full-size eating apples because it's July. The apples are already a crab apple size, so be interested to see if they're nice eating apples or not. It was covered in blossom, so it's quite a nice tree. I definitely want to be keeping this apple tree. It's a shame I need to prune off some of the branches to fit in the shed, but I will see. There's a chance I might be able to pin them back. Just see how it goes, but I'll probably need to keep a couple of branches off them. And then in the corner we've got quite a mature plum tree. The plum tree flowered really well this year, and it should be covered in plums later in the season. You can see hopefully a few at the top there just starting to fatten up, so I'll be covered in plums. I will need to do a lot of pruning on this tree as well. This will need to be pruned in summertime because plums and cherries, if you prune them in winter, here in the UK you tend to get silver leaf. That will infect it and then it will kill the tree slowly, so it needs to be pruned in summer unlike most trees. Also there is some kind of disease in this tree because it's producing all this really thick growth, and you can see it's just really congested. A lot of this thick growth keeps dying off. There's some kind of disease in there, not one I've come across before, but it's just causing all this congested growth. You can see there again, lots of congested growth and just lots of dead going on. So I need to remove a few branches there to fit in the shed and to clear up that dead infected area, but I'll leave the majority of that plum tree growing. It's a nice tree to have. It's right in the corner, so it's not causing too many issues. It might shade the green roof that I'm going to have on the shed, but again, it's not a big problem. So this is the good space for a shed. It's in the corner. It's going to be shaded anyway by the trees, so out of all the growing spaces I'm going to lose, this is the least important growing space, so I don't mind losing that too much. So I think that's mostly it for the tour of the garden. As I say, I've got pretty much a blank canvas. There are a few trees and shrubs, but there's a lot of work I'd like to do to change this place. So for example, there's a lot of slabs here. I'll be taking out most of the slabs to maximise the growing space. I don't like having concrete in the garden. I like to have as much growing space as possible. So I'll just have the minimum amount of slabs so I can walk somewhere as a path. The rest is going to be planted up. This back garden, I haven't finalised my ideas of what I'm going to grow here, but I'm thinking of a jungle style garden. So I'm going to have lots of tropical looking plants. It's going to be really full of bamboo, really thick, dense garden, giving lots of privacy and lots of shelter, but it's going to look like a jungle basically. The front garden, I'm going to go more traditional British country cottage style garden, so I'll probably have a few bedding plants. I'll have some wildflowers kind of mixed in maybe with the borders, but the borders are mainly going to be roses, old-fashioned roses. I want the front to look really nice and formal. It's going to be quite exposed, people are going to see it quite often. I don't want it to look like a messy jungle, so it's going to have lots and lots of flowers, really showy, especially on the front bit. There's a big slab of concrete where I've currently planted up a few sunflowers. That area I'm going to have for lots of summer bedding plants throughout the year. I might also install a patio at some point at the back here. I've got a wasted space to the side there, which is currently just a dumping ground for the old toilet and kitchen and sink and everything like that I've been renovating. That old patio, I might move that, have a growing space in there for more sheltered tropical plants, and this area have a little patio so I can sit out, and then I can maybe have some plants along the patio as well, maybe some pots. The back area, mostly like a jungle garden. Front area, more formal and neat. So that's all for this video, and I won't be doing any massive works here in the garden until next year, but I'll certainly be filming it all and keeping you updated as and when I do works here in the garden.